Hey guys, we're doing predictions for UFC Fight Night Sioux Falls, McDonald versus Lineker. If you haven't seen my prediction videos for any of the events taking place during UFC International Fight Week, which are Dos Anjos versus Alvarez, Tough 23 finale, Jędrzejczyk versus Gadella, and then UFC 200. You can check those videos out. They'll be linked in the description. Also follow me on Twitter. That'll be linked in the description. I did a UFC 200 collaboration video with Best MMA Picks and MMA Savant. That'll be linked. And I'm also planning to have my videos out for the rest of the events in July. There are two more after this one. UFC on Fox, Home versus Shevchenko. And the last one in July, UFC 201, Lawler versus Woodley. So I plan to have those out very soon, and when they are, those will be linked in the description. So check all of those videos out. But UFC Fight Night Sioux Falls, I'm bummed that Chiesa fell out of the main event. I thought that was a fantastic fight. That was going to be really exciting, a really tough one to call, and I'm actually going to give my prediction for that original matchup when we get to the Ferguson versus Vannata fight, instead of talking about the new matchup, because Vannata is a debuting fighter that I don't know anything about. Yeah, okay. At lightweight, Scott Holtzman versus Cody Pfister. I'm taking Holtzman here. Pfister hasn't really done anything yet to prove to me that he deserves to be in the UFC. I mean, he got a win over Yosdenis Cedeno, which means almost nothing, and then lost to Sage Northcutt. Did get him down, but really didn't matter in the end. And Holtzman, he had a finish over, was it Anthony Christodoulou, I think, in his first UFC fight. And that's also an extremely low-level opponent. But his last fight with Drew Dober, was relatively competitive, had some good grappling exchanges. I think he's more athletic than Pfister. And we saw against Christodoulou, he has somewhat of a striking game that he can get a finish against, at least against low-level competition. So yeah, I'm taking Holtzman here. I don't know if by decision or finish, but I'm going to take Holtzman. Next up in middleweight, Devin Clark versus Alex Nicholson. We're going to skip right over this one because we have a debuting fighter in Clark, and Alex Nicholson, the guy who got his jaw broken by Misha Cirkunov in his debut UFC fight. And I, couldn't really evaluate him off of that, so we're going to move on. And there are a lot of debuting fighters here, so this should be a pretty quick video. At Bantamweight, Yahya versus a debuting fighter. Another one, Matthew Lopez. I can't make a pick for this one either, but Yahya, he's done a really good job of winning fights up till now. I thought he had the Tom Ninamaki loss I thought was pretty bad, especially considering that Ninamaki went on to lose 3 straight after that win. And I think it was against Mizuto Hirota. He got caught in an armbar that he got out of. But, other than that, the guy has a pretty solid win streak going. Hasn't been fighting great competition. You look at his record, a lot of kind of no-name guys, but, he's still a really talented grappler, can get you down round after round, smother you, win a decision. But, I can't take him here just based off of the experience and the record of wins. I think certainly a good striker could put it on him. We saw in the Masanori Kanehara fight, his last one, in the 3rd round, he gassed pretty hard, and Kanehara came on strong. But that's enough about that fight. Let's move on to women's strawweight. Courtney Casey versus Christina Stanciu. I'm going to take Stanciu here. I thought she looked decent on the feet against in her last fight against what was her name, Marina Morosh. Early in the fight, I thought she was getting some good stuff done. A really aggressive striker, but once Morosh grappled with her, closed the distance, tied up with her, dragged her to the ground, she took over, and it was pretty much over from there. Courtney Casey, she's tough. Looks like a scrappy striker. Had a real strong start against Joanne Calderwood, and was competitive with Sioux Ham, but dropped the decision in both of those fights, and just seems like a tough fighter who can get off to a strong start, but can't follow through, can't quite get over the hump to get that win. So I have to take Stanciu here, even though I thought her grappling looked pretty bad in that Morosh fight, but I don't know. I'm not sure Casey can get a win at a high level in the UFC, so I'm taking Stanciu. All right, at middleweight, a matchup that I just don't understand. I think some people at the commission need to get fired for this one. I mean, this shouldn't have even been sanctioned. Just a lopsided matchup. Eric Spicely versus Sam Alvey. Eric Spicely just coming off of his tough 23 loss in the semifinal, or the quarterfinals, I guess. No, the semifinals to Andrew Sanchez, where he just looked terrible. I mean, that looked like a guy who just didn't show up wanting to fight. He's a grappler, and it really showed. I mean, the first big shot he got hit with, he got hurt badly, but it just looked like he quit, and Sanchez just followed up, and he went down very, very easily in the first round. So I think he has no striking game, and that's just a horrible matchup. That's a horrible style to fight Sam Alvey with, who has big knockout power, and lost his last fight very recently to Elias Theodorou. Really quick turnaround for him here, actually. Was that, like a month turnaround? But I have to go with Alvey. If he's fighting a guy who can't strike, I don't see how he doesn't land that big knockout strike. Spicely's not going to be able to counter him, and he's just going to be looking to grapple. And Alvey, I don't think, is even a bad grappler. The guys who beat him, Theodorou, he struck at distance with him. He didn't grapple with him, and then Derek Brunson knocked him out. So I have to go with Alvey here. I think he's just going to absolutely run over him, get the first round knockout. All right, at women's bantamweight, Lauren Murphy versus Kaitlyn Chookagian, another debuting fighter. Lauren Murphy, I thought she had her best UFC performance in her last fight. It was against the least qualified fighter, Kelly Fashholtz, and she was really getting outstruck, losing early in that fight. Turned it around, and she got the finish. I believe it was a TKO. TKO finish, but had pretty bad performances against McMahon and Liz Carmouche. She didn't get much done at all. But yeah, against a newcomer, I have no idea. So we're going to move on from that one to what I think is the hottest fight on this card. A very intriguing matchup at flyweight, Louis Smolka versus Ben Nguyen. Smolka coming off that great performance against Paddy Houlihan, and Ben Nguyen kind of flying under the radar, but I think looking really consistent. He's a finisher, just really solid. I think people are going to be really quick to take Smolka here right off Nguyen, but I like Nguyen. Smolka, he's a crafty grappler. He's really good at creating a finish, even a last-minute finish when he needs one. But I think he really still has big holes in his striking game. I think he just lacks, fundamental striking. In the Richie Vasilik fight, go back and watch that. He was getting hammered. Was down 2 rounds badly, and then the third round he caught Vasilek coming in with that Hail Mary side kick to the face that knocked out Vasilek. But, I mean, he was really getting battered, badly outboxed in that fight. Before landing that, Neil Seary, I think, dropped him in the first round before Smolka proceeded to out-grapple him. And, he's really long and tall for the division, but just lacks those fundamentals. Also dropped a pretty lackluster decision to Chris Cariaso, where he just kind of got methodically outboxed early in his UFC career. And I think Ben Nguyen, that's where he's going to get him with the consistent striking. Not as scrappy, not as much of a brawler as Smolka. But we saw against Alptek and Oskalic, he's pretty patient, composed in that fight. In the third round, came forward and got the TKO finish. And on the ground, I really like Nguyen as well. His last fight against Ryan Benoit, really early, took him down, got his back, choked him out. I think the guy's really athletic. I think he's really thick for the division, strong. And I think on the ground, while Smolka is really crafty, attempts a lot of chokes and is dangerous from different positions, I think Ben Nguyen might have the more solid positional grappling. Not sure about that, but I really do feel like he has a big advantage on the feet. Just a more consistent, calculated striker than Smolka, who's more of a brawler. So a tough one to call. I could see Smolka winning, but I really feel like Nguyen's a dark horse in that division. I think he's looked great in his first couple of fights, and I am taking him here. I'm going to say he wins a decision against Smolka, who's really had some problems on the feet in the UFC. All right, at welterweight, Kyle Noke versus Kaitlyn Nakamura. I'm taking Nakamura here. Noke, I think, should be the better striker, but Noke is very inconsistent. Had that great front kick to the body finish over Peter Sabata, and then his next fight against Alex Morono just kind of got into a reckless brawl where he just kind of got outpaced and outworked and lost a decision. But why I'm taking Nakamura is because Noke has at many times lost fights in the UFC because of his grappling deficiencies. Going back years to the Andrew Craig fight, that was Craig's first fight in the UFC. He out-wrestled Noke. Noke got submitted by Ed Herman. Herman off of his back submitted him. And recently, Patrick Cote just pitched a shutout against this guy, took him down at will over and over again, held him down. And Nakamura, we saw in the Li Jingliang fight, he has some grappling ability. Hit a reversal on the ground from a sprawl position, took Jingliang's back and submitted him. So I think Nakamura is going to press that grappling advantage. And on the feet, Nakamura, looked bad in that Jingliang fight. He got dropped at, I think it was the end of the second round. Looked like he was going to be put away. But Noke isn't. He can be a dangerous striker, but really not the most consistent one. So I think Nakamura can make this a brawl, make it dirty, get some grappling exchanges. And I don't know that Alex Morono is a whole lot better if he's even at the same level of Nakamura. And we've seen Noke can drop a decision to someone like that. So I'm taking Nakamura here. Maybe by submission, maybe by decision, not sure, but I will take Nakamura. At heavyweight, Daniel Omielanczuk versus Alexei Oliynyk. Another matchup like the Spicely Alvey fight where this should not have been sanctioned. Oliynyk beat the two guys who beat Omielanczuk in the UFC, and I think he's just going to run over him here. Omielanczuk is your typical kind of short, stocky, heavy-set heavyweight who's a brawler, has knockout power, but not much else really. And Oliynyk is the opposite of that. You're not a typical heavyweight. got a neck crank submission against Hamilton, who Hamilton was able to kind of grind Omielanczuk, beat him in the clinch, hit some takedowns. And then Jared Rosholt, who out-wrestled Omielanczuk. Alexei Oliynyk just put him out early in the first round, hit him with one shot that knocked him out cold. So Oliynyk, I think, is a far more skilled striker than Omielanczuk, has the power to go toe-to-toe with him. And if he clinches with him, which, like I just said, we saw Omielanczuk lose like that against Hamilton. If Oliynyk chooses to fight like that, drag him to the ground, I think he dominates him there too. So I really like Oliynyk here. I'm going to take him, and I'm going to take him to get a finish. All right, at middleweight, Tim Boetsch versus Josh Samman. This is definitely a crossroads fight and an interesting one. I like Samman though. Samman losing in the way he did to Tamden McCrory, even though it wasn't a name fighter, the opposite of a name fighter, a guy coming back after a long layoff, hiatus from the sport, getting submitted by McCrory. That sits better with me than Boetsch. Just getting knocked out cold by knees in the clinch from Ed Herman. It's kind of an over-the-hill middleweight himself. Boetsch has definitely fought better competition, though. Tallest Leites, and I actually think that fight against Leites was probably one of the brighter moments of Boetsch's recent, UFC run, where he was competitive with him on the feet for a while, tagged Leites a few times, but still ended up getting overwhelmed and submitted on the ground. But his boxing, I think, is just not there. It was really the CB Dalloway fight where I think it was really shown that his boxing is not there. And then the Brad Tavares fight where he got a knockout in the third round, he was just getting his ass whooped for the first two rounds of that fight. So I think Boetsch is really kind of slipping. I think he's getting to the end. And Samman, even though that was kind of a bad loss to McCrory, it came against a guy who was a really good grappler, a specialist, you might say. And while Boetsch is a decent wrestler, I don't think he can outwork Samman for 3 rounds. Eventually, I think Samman will, if he is taken down, get back to his feet, and from there he's a really aggressive striker, and I don't think Boetsch can deal with that. I think his chin's going, and like I say, he just doesn't have the boxing. So I think Samman's going to put the pressure on him, hurt him, and get the finish. So I like Samman. All right, at lightweight, Tony Ferguson versus Landon Vannata. And Vannata's a newcomer, and like I said at the top, I'm going to give my prediction for the original matchup, Ferguson versus Chiesa. That was a really interesting matchup. I saw, great arguments for either guy. Both guys have, put themselves in bad positions early in fights. Chiesa against Miller had his back taken in the first round. Colton Smith, he had his back taken in the first round by him. Almost, submitted by both, but survived, turned the tables, and he ended up taking those guys back and submitting them. And Tony Ferguson, with such a reckless, wide open style, while I would think he would have had a huge advantage on the feet over Chiesa, I think eventually, having such a wide open style, he would have given Chiesa the opportunity to tie up with them on the feet, create a scramble, and I think Chiesa would get his back, and from there, Chiesa's probably one of the best rear naked choke finishers in the UFC. Chiesa, Masvidal, turned up the heat on him on the feet. I think got him to the ground from that. I think he landed some body shots, some combinations against the fence, and then Lozon was able to get a doctor stoppage win off of a cut against him. But Case has never really been dropped by a big shot. He actually dropped Masvidal in their fight. His striking technically still very, very bad. Definitely, subpar for the UFC, especially at the elite level. But even though Ferguson is a powerful, accurate striker, really attacks from different angles, I think Case was tough enough that he probably wouldn't go down. And then, like I said, I think Ferguson would get really reckless, and even the fight against Barboza, thought he was down on the scorecards before that third round, where he was able to get the finish. And Ferguson, his submissions have come when he's hurt guys on the feet and dropped them. It's not him taking guys down and really initiating the grappling. And Queso would be the better wrestler, I think. The Castillo fight, Ferguson really struggled with the wrestling, and as far as him, getting a little too wild and putting himself in bad positions. Trujillo, he blasted him in their fight right out of the gate, and there's a moment in that fight where Chiesa, I think, had his back and decided to go for a belly down armbar and lost position. It didn't cost him, but stuff like that, I think Chiesa would really capitalize on. So I would have taken Chiesa by submission, even though I think he would have really, really struggled on the feet. Okay, and then the main event, Bantamweight, Michael McDonald versus John Lineker. This is, even though I don't like this as a main event, it's just not a really hot fight, I think. I think it's a really interesting matchup, and I'm having a tough time calling this one. Initially, I thought, Michael McDonald being inactive over the last few years, looking really rusty against Masanori Kanehara in his last fight. I thought Lineker was going to pretty easily be able to walk him down like he's done to his past several opponents, just walk him down, land those shots, and he really mixes up his shots, goes to the head, goes to the body, and just won a decision against McDonald. But Lineker really hasn't been forced to, fight outside of that kind of, that kind of fight where he's just able to walk him down, maybe have some big exchanges in the pocket. And that's another thing in the pocket. McDonald, he can exchange in the pocket, throw down better than anyone that Lineker has beaten. Look at his Barao fight where he tagged Barao, staggered him in that fight. And then his fight against Brad Pickett, had some really nasty exchanges in the phone booth in that fight. This guy has more hand speed and, better phone booth boxing than, Francisco Rivera, Rob Font, who were either distance strikers or more kind of in and out strikers. Ian McCall also in the pocket. I think McDonald could really hang with Lineker. But like I was saying, that Lineker, no one's really forced him to grapple or fight a different fight than him just being able to walk down his opponents, walk them back against the fence and then land his big shots to the body and to the head. I think McDonald could force him to grapple here. Most of McDonald's grappling has come off of his back. Got taken down by Brad Pickett and got the triangle on him. Hit the reversal off of his back in his last fight against Kanehara to take his back at the submission win. And I think it was against, Chris Cariaso early in his UFC career. Had him in a triangle for, a couple minutes. So McDonald's he hasn't been a guy to take guys down, but I do think he can, take the fight to the ground against Lineker. I don't know if it's by taking him down or pulling guard, but we haven't really seen much of Lineker's grappling, although Bagotinov did out-wrestle him and win a decision. And I just think McDonald's a higher level fighter than the guys Lineker has beaten, some of which are good fighters, McCall, Rivera, but at bantamweight, McDonald's a huge step up from Rob Font. I just think a more dynamic fighter can fight on the ground and, like I said, has an advantage, or at least I think is as good as Lineker in the pocket. So I like McDonald here. I thought he looked really rusty again against Kanehara, but I just think this is a different matchup for Lineker, one he hasn't really seen. I think McDonald can hit some takedowns, hit some big shots in the pocket against Lineker. So I'm going to go with what I think is the underdog, McDonald. Yeah, I'm going to take McDonald. And also if the fight goes into the 4th and 5th rounds, I think McDonald should have the better cardio there. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to take McDonald by submission, I think. Yeah. All right, guys, those are my predictions for UFC Fight Night Sioux Falls, McDonald versus Lineker. Thanks for watching. Again, check out my prediction videos for 200, Dos Santos versus Alvarez, Tough 23 finale, the collaboration video I did with the best MMA picks and MMA Savant. Follow me on Twitter. Links to all those things in the description. And also check the description. Hopefully I'll already have my UFC on Fox Home versus Shevchenko and UFC 201 Lawler versus Woodley videos out. So look out for those. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.